CBS 46 News presents Public Affairs on Peach.
Good morning and welcome to Public Affairs on Peach. I'm Tracy Hutchins. A Gwinnett County mother is killed inside of her Snellville home. Her 12-year-old son finds her body. His stepfather, Walter Lowe, is charged with killing her. Police say there had been prior complaints of domestic violence at the home. Well, police and those who deal with domestic violence cases will tell you how tensions can sometimes erupt quickly, and in some situations there is absolutely no warning at all. You're about to hear from a domestic violence survivor, Christy Sims, who went through such an ordeal. Christy, thank you for coming in and being with us.
Thank you.
And I've had the pleasure of meeting you and telling your story before, but for those who don't know your story, you were attacked with acid by a former boyfriend. Tell us what happened, because there was no indication that anything was wrong in the relationship.
Well, I'd made the decision. This happened to I was attacked by acid April 28th, 2013, about a little over 4 years ago. I made the decision that I did not want to marry this guy, and I guess he made the decision that, you know what, if she's not going to marry me, she's not going to marry anyone. So he threw acid in my face, and the purpose was to destroy my appearance, which he did. He changed me for life. So, we were at home on April 28th, a Sunday afternoon, called me into the restroom of my house and just threw acid in my face. I was in a coma for 2 months, and over the course of the past 4 years, I've been slowly recovering. I've had my entire face rebuilt. Look like a totally different person.
How many surgeries have you had to do?
I've had 13 so far. I've taken a break. It's very taxing on the mind and the body to have so many surgeries, and I had surgeries every 2 months for a course of about 3 years. So I've had 13 so far, and I'll probably have a few more over the next few years. And
you'd mentioned before you were happy that we were doing this show to talk about the issue of domestic violence, because in your relationship, other than saying, you didn't want to be in a relationship with them, there had been no prior history of any calls. You didn't have to call police before on him, did you?
This was not a violent relationship. I did not live in fear of this particular guy. I just didn't want to get married. And I didn't want to get married because I started to pick up, as I developed myself and I became a counselor, I started to recognize some of the warning signs of abuse. But he wasn't punching me or anything like that. He was just very controlling, very jealous. I've felt this urge to always kind of check in with him. So there were warning signs, and I own those now in retrospect, that there were warning signs, but nothing to make me feel like this guy was going to throw acid in my face. He was going to change my life forever. I didn't have any indication of anything like that. So
tell me about the scope of emotions that I would imagine you've gone through in, dealing with painful surgeries, dealing with your appearance, that he has changed completely, and knowing what you went through before you got to this point. What are some of the emotions that you had to deal with?
I had to totally redefine myself. I was this attractive woman. I had dimples and I had freckles, and people don't think about this. They say, she lost her pretty face. Well, I didn't just lose I lost my face. I lost a large part of my identity. I lost the face that my children, who were only 10 and 13 at the time, the only face they had ever known. So this didn't cause trauma just for me, it caused trauma for everyone around me. And I was a professional counselor when this happened to me, so I instantly became that person who helped people to that person who couldn't even bathe myself, who couldn't even take care of myself. And so just that whole physical and mental transformation, and having to slowly build myself, and I was doing it while fighting the justice system, while being on television all the time, and trying to raise my children. So, it's just been it's been a journey. It's been a journey, and I'm still trying to adjust. And I don't know if I will ever get used to the fact that I've been changed forever. I don't know if I'm ever going to get used to this completely. I'm learning to accept it and empower myself and empower other people through it. So.
And let's talk about your attacker, Andrew Fordham, because it took a while before this case went to trial, and we have covered that trial. But why did it take so long?
Well, he designed this to be an accident. And that's what people don't understand. He set it up to be an accident. We were not arguing before. So if you can imagine, I was traumatized. When they first questioned me, they questioned me right as I had just been burned. And I didn't know this guy was trying to hurt me. I never heard of anybody being attacked with drain cleaner. I knew there was nothing wrong in my house, anything like that, but it took me waking up from a coma and putting all the pieces together and saying to myself, you know what, this is not this was not an accident. It didn't happen that way. And the other thing is, I don't even have any memory of seeing that it was an accident, but they took that, and it took 2 years to prove that it was not. They were able to prove that it was not beyond a reasonable doubt.
Now, he was sentenced to 40 years in prison, 20 to serve, and 20 on probation after that. So, you know, I can imagine you're looking ahead. What are your feelings with the possibility of him getting out?
I try very hard not to think about that. My prayer is that he will serve the entire 20 years. You know, our legal system is a little interesting. Sometimes they don't serve the full term, but I'm hoping that because he got 40 years with 20 to serve, that he will indeed serve that 20 years. And I have so many things going on right now, just the raising of my children, the building of my foundation, and the growth of myself, that I try very hard not to even think about him, not to dwell on when he's going to get out or anything like that. All I know is I just don't have to deal with him right now.
And I know you put the focus really on counseling others in your foundation. We do want to talk about that. So tell us how, I mean, obviously you just being here and being able to speak out and stand up and say, I'm not a victim, I have survived this, and you can too if you go through the same thing. What do you tell other victims?
Well, first of all, tell them that we're not victims. The fact that you woke up and you're surviving, we're survivors. When you wake up and decide that I'm going to live and not die, and I'm not going to let this person change my entire life and make me fearful and afraid for the rest of my life, you determine at that moment you're not a victim, that you are a survivor. So the first thing I tell them is, you know what, we're survivors. We got up. Everybody doesn't survive. A lot of people don't survive. The fact that we survive makes us survivors. So I just tell them, if you can, I don't harbor hate and bitterness in my heart, because then he would destroy the inside of me too. So that's the other thing, is try your best to maintain who you were before this happened to you. You know, I was a certain kind of person before this happened to me, and I'm not going to let him change the inside the way he changed the outside.
Absolutely. And you have a book too that you have written?
Yes. And this book is about that. It's people expected me to write this, you know, sob story book. I wrote a book about how to get through domestic violence, acid attack, and just about anything in life. And I wrote it from the perspective of not just a client and a survivor victim. I wrote it from the standpoint of a professional counselor. Like, if you're going through something, which is what I went through, is one of the worst things you can go through in life. I mean, what's worse than being burned alive? And guess what? I'm still sitting here. Absolutely. And I'm not just still sitting here, I'm still smiling. And I still have goodness in my heart. And I've been able to help a lot of people because of that. So the book is called Yellow Tulips on a Cloudy Day, and it is about the way that I was able to find goodness in every horrible thing that happened to me. I was able to find something positive. So that's what the book is about.
Yeah. Christy Sims, thank you so much.
Thank
it was great to hear your story, and other survivors are certainly beneficial by hearing it too. Christy, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, just how prevalent is domestic violence in today's society? We'll talk to an expert when Public Affairs on Peach continues.